Hi. So it's been a while since I posted anything. I've been busy working, reading, life. Anyways, I read this. Well, part of it. I had to stop because I want to talk about it. I'm not even at chapter 5. I'm 50 pages in. Yeah, about 50 pages in. There's so much stuff in here. And I just wanted to talk about it and how it's relevant, even concerning Flat Earth. So I'm just going to go in the order of my notes in the book. So basically it's about this guy named Winston. He works in this area where they actually redo history, or their notes, their newspapers, books and stuff. He gets his little notes in his cubicle and rewrites stuff and submits it, like a whole team of people do it. So that's just the basis of what he is doing. First, I'm just going to go over, because they talk about the divisions of government and what they call them, which is kind of funny. So, the first one is the Ministry of Truth. That's where he works, which concerns itself with news, entertainment, education, and fine arts, which is kind of funny, Division of Truth, and they control everything you see and learn. The next one is the Ministry of Peace, which concerns itself with war, which I thought was great. Great naming on that one. The Ministry of Love, which maintained law and order, because that's always loving, is law and order. And the last one is Ministry of Plenty, which is responsible for economic affairs. Kind of like rations and distributing products to the people. And basically what I'm coming over with right now is the definition of newspeak, which I thought that was clever. Basically, they're rewriting the language. So that we'll get a little more deep into once I start reading off all my notes. So the newspeak of Ministry of Truth changed to Mini True. Ministry of Peace is Mini Packs. Ministry of Love is Mini Love. And Ministry of Plenty is Mini Plenty. So they're all positive names for not so positive directions. So I made a few notes. I'm just going to talk about it and how I think it's completely relevant to society and hiding truth and controlling the public. So Winston, the main character, is starting to feel like something's wrong, and he's starting to write a diary, which is not against the law, but he has to hide it, because if you think for yourself, you're going to have a problem. So I'm going to read this first part because I think this is how people would react if they saw anything about the flat earth on TV or anything like that. So I'm just going to read a little bit. Might be boring, but oh well. Because this used to be a popular book, but it's not so much anymore, probably because of what it's telling us. Alright. People are leaping up and down in their places and shouting at the top of their voices in an effort to drown the maddening, bleeding voice that came from the screen. The little sandy-haired woman had turned bright pink, and her mouth was opening and shutting like that of a landed fish. Even O'Brien's heavy face was flushed. He was sitting very straight in his chair, his powerful chest swelling and quivering as though he was standing up to the assault of a wave. The dark-haired girl behind Winston had begun crying out loud, "Swine, swine, swine," and suddenly she picked up a heavy Newspeak dictionary and flung it at the screen. It struck Goldstein's nose and bounced off. The voice continued. In a lucid moment, Winston found that he was shouting with the others and kicking his heel violently against the rung of his chair. The horrible thing about the 2-minute hate was not that one was obliged to act a part, but that it was impossible to avoid joining in. Within 30 seconds, any pretense was always unnecessary. A hideous ecstasy of fear and vindictiveness, a desire to kill, to torture, to smash faces with a sledgehammer, seemed to flow through the whole group of people like an electric current, turning one against one's will into a grimacing, screaming lunatic. And yet the rage that one felt was an abstract, indirect emotion which could be switched from one object to another like the flame of a blow lamp. Thus, at one moment, Winston's hatred turned against Goldstein at all, but on the contrary, against Big Brother, the party, and the thought police. So, they have a rebel who displays his anger with society over the TV, and he's called Goldstein, and they have the public pretty much brainwashed, I guess. I don't know. I haven't read too far into it. So when they watch, I don't know why they even watch it if they hate it so much, but everyone knows, why do people watch Flat Earth videos when they hate them so much? Anyways, basically Winston stopped his hatred towards him, and it put it back on the government, which they call Big Brother in the book, which it's kind of funny. Big Brother, the party, and the thought police, which I thought was a great name because basically they're telling you what to think and they make sure you do it. Follow the law, thought police. And also another thing I was just going to put in here, they have televisions, but they're always on. You can't turn them off, and they watch you, and they can talk to you through it. Really freaky, because who knows? They might be on now. And then they also have a few slogans that their government uses. It's war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. So that made me think of stuff like war on drugs, war on terror. What does war really mean? Because it might not even mean what we are told it means. It might be like war on drugs is we want you on drugs. War on terror, we want you terrorized. I thought that was kind of freaky, that those are the government slogans. War is peace. And we'll get a little bit deeper into what they're doing with their words, which is kind of what's going on now. They're picking certain words and saying certain things. This is the continuing, or the end of the speech on TV. It's just, you know those tests that they used to do on people? They have the one person, they have like 5 people, and they all do tests on, they have five people on a panel, and then 4 of the people will answer wrong on purpose to see if the 5th person will think on his own or blend. So this is kind of about blending. It says, in the 2-minute hate, he could not help sharing in the general delirium, but this subhuman chanting always filled him with horror. Of course he chanted with the rest. It was impossible to do otherwise. To disassemble your feelings, to control your face, to do what everyone else was doing, was an instinctive reaction, but there was a space of a couple of seconds during which the expression in his eyes meant conceivably have betrayed him. And it was exactly at that moment that this significant thing happened, if indeed it did happen. Momentarily he caught O'Brien's eye. O'Brien had stood up, he had taken off his spectacles, and was in the act of resetting them on his nose with his characteristic gesture. But there was a fraction of a second when their eyes met, and for as long as it took to happen, Winston knew, yes, he knew, that O'Brien was thinking the same thing as himself. An unmistakable message has passed. It was as though their two minds had opened and the thoughts were flowing from one into the other. Though their eyes, "I am with you," O'Brien seemed to be saying to him. "I know precisely what you are feeling. I know all about your contempt, your hatred, your disgust. But don't worry, I'm on your side." And then the flash of intelligence was gone, and O'Brien's face was inscrutable as everybody else. So, someone caught it and then lost it. But I mean, that just means you're on the edge of breaking through or being trapped. I don't know which one it is. So that was a little disturbing, but I see it. I see people going, "Oh, that makes sense," and then just going right back to, "I don't get it, nothing happened." Oh well. Things happen. Okay. And then this is another part of it, kind of talking about past and present, and basically getting people to think a certain way. So if you get them to think a certain way, you don't have to tell them to think. They already do it on their own. Kind of like the globalists. They were just brought up, this is true, they only had to mention it 3 or 4 times, being a child, they believe it. Now they'll actually fight you tooth and nail for something that they don't even know that's true anymore. But that's the thought police, making sure they think a certain way, then they don't have to control them because they'll just do whatever they want them to do, and there's no regulation because it doesn't exist anymore. So this one's a couple paragraphs long. If all the records told the same tale, then the lie passed into history and became truth. Who controls the past ran the party slogan. Controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. And yet the past, though of its nature alterable, never had been altered. Whatever was true now was true from everlasting to everlasting. It was quite simple. All that was needed was an unending series of victories over your own memory. Reality control, they called it. And newspeak is doublethink. So they changed the words reality control to doublethink. Obviously that sounds less threatening. Winston sank his arms to his side and slowly refilled his lungs of air. His mind slid away into the labyrinth world of doublethink. To know and not to know. To be conscious of complete truthfulness while telling carefully constructed lies. To hold simultaneously 2 opinions which cancelled out, knowing them to be contradictory, and believing in both of them. To use logic against logic. To repudiate morality while lying claim to it. To believe that democracy was impossible and that the party was the guardian of democracy. To forget whatever was necessary to forget, then to draw it back into memory again at the moment when it was needed, and then promptly to forget it again. And above all, to apply the same process to the process itself. That was the ultimate subtlety. Consciously to induce unconsciousness. And then once again to become unconscious at the act of hypnosis, and you just performed. Even to understand the word doublethink involved the use of doublethink. So that was a little thick. Kind of what I got out of it was like the president, because I know he likes to bring up how the flat earth is irrelevant. And instead of using like a ball, doesn't he say circle? You can say it's flat, I say it's a circle. Circle can be flat. So I think that is logic against logic, contradictory. People don't really think about what circle means because the pictures we see are circles, but shown as globes. So I mean, you're shown one thing and told to think another, and then when you hear it, it's all okay, and I don't know. It's kind of heavy. So that was a little creepy. And then we get into this whole thing of rewriting history and making what we said in the past change to basically pretend that we know what we're talking about. They call it the memory hole, which is really creepy. So this is where Winston works, and he gets his work through this printer thing to tell him to change certain things, and then they throw the original down the memory hole, and it goes and gets burned. So it's not really a memory hole, it's more of memory destruction hole. But as you've noticed so far, they like to change words and for them to mean something else. This one's a little long. Sorry, this video is going to be kind of long, but if you're interested in the book, it's a lot more than what I'm talking about. And I'm not even halfway through it, so I might be making more videos on this. It just kind of freaks me out. And they probably should make you read this in high school, but they don't anymore. Alright, it says, what happened in the unseen labyrinth to which the pneumatic tubes lead? He did not know in detail, but he did know in general terms. As soon as all the corrections which happened to be necessary in any particular number of the times had been assembled and collated, that number would be reprinted, the original copy destroyed, and the corrected copy placed in the files in its stead. This process of continuous alteration was applied not only to newspapers but to books, periodicals, pamphlets, posters, leaflets, films, soundtracks, cartoons, photographs, to every kind of literature or documentation which might conceivably hold any political or ideological significance. Kind of like adding chemtrails to children cartoons and movies, and really creepy. Day by day and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date. In this way, every prediction made by the party could be shown by documentary evidence to have been correct, nor was any item of news or any expression of opinion which conflicted with the needs of the moment ever allowed to remain on record. All history was scrapped clean and reinscribed exactly as often as was necessary. In no case would it have been possible, once the deed was done, to prove any falsification had taken place. The largest section of the records department, that's where they keep records that they keep changing, that's fact, are far larger than the one in which Winston worked, consisted simply of persons whose duty it was to track down and collect all copies, books, newspapers, and other documents which had been superseded and were due for destruction. A number of Times, which is a newspaper, which might, because of changes in political alignment or mistaken prophecies uttered by Big Brother, have been rewritten, and dozens times still stood on the files bearing its original date. No other copy existed to contradict it. Books also were recalled and rewritten again and again, and were irretrievably reissued without any admission that any alteration had been made. Even the written instructions which Winston received, and which he invariably got rid of as soon as he dealt with them, never stated or implied any act of forgery was to be committed. Always the reference was to slips, errors, misprints, or misquotations, which it was necessary to put right in the interest of accuracy. But actually he thought he was readjusting the Ministry of Plenty's figures. It was not even forgery. It was merely the substitution of one piece of nonsense for another. Most of the material that you were dealing with had no connection with anything in the real world, not even the kind of connection that is contained in a direct lie. Statistics were just as much a fantasy as their original version, as in their rectified version. A great deal of time you were expected to make them up out of your head. For example, the Ministry of Plenty's forecast had estimated the output of boots for the quarter at 145 million pairs. The actual output was given as 62 million. Winston, however, in rewriting the forecast, marked the figure down to 57 million, so as to allow for the unusual claim that the quota had been overfilled. In any case, 62 million was no nearer the truth than 57 million, or than 145 million. Very likely no boots had been produced at all. Likelier still, nobody knew how many had been produced, much less cared. All one known was that every quarter astronomical numbers of boots were produced on paper, while perhaps half the population went barefoot. And so it was every class of recorded fact, great or small, everything faded away into a shadow world in which finally even the date of the year had become uncertain. So that is very upsetting, but I see that now in the unemployment statistics. They I don't know if they flat out lie about it, but they change what they claim as unemployment. So once you stop looking or stop trying, you're not unemployed anymore. You don't count. You're just eliminated. So I could see this all over the board for any quota. They'd probably just tell you one thing and not even do it. Or like NASA, I need $70 billion trillion to fly to space. And they can tell you they came in under budget, even though they didn't even do anything. So stuff like that, it's very disturbing. An example of Newspeak, which I see as basically just changing the language. Like, I don't know, just transferring like Greek to English to the English we use now. I mean, a whole bunch of words have changed, and the meanings don't even mean the same anymore. So I have an example of it right here. That what I'll read first is the Newspeak that they're changing everything to. It says Times 3.12.83 reporting BB day order. Double plus ungood refs. Unpersons rewrite full wise up sub anti-filing. And then they're like, so that's Newspeak. In Old Speak, which is standard English, it might be like this. The reporting of Big Brother's order for the day in the Times of December 3rd, 1983, is extremely unsatisfactory and makes references to non-existent persons. Rewrite it in full and submit your draft to higher authority before filing. That might not even come out the same. I mean, there's no way. They could change every definition of that word up there and it wouldn't even tell you to rewrite this because Big Brother needs you to lie. So, that's, I mean, think about it. I mean, Greek to English, it's just completely different. Some of the root words don't even mean the same anymore. Another word that I caught in here that they used was unperson. Pretty creepy. So an unperson is basically someone who did a crime, which they, you know how they call it thought police? They're called thought criminals because they're basically rebels. They didn't think a certain way, or they did something. They don't go too much into anything that's happened so far, but basically what he said is you vanish, or you're executed, you're deleted from life, you're erased, and then or they just rewrite what you did. And I will read part of that too. I got it down. Maybe it's this long one. I think I have, this one's kind of long. think so. I think it starts over here. Okay, so Winston got another thing at his desk to rewrite. Someone got eliminated, and they need to do something about it. So he basically made up a whole fake life for this other guy. Ogilvy? I don't know. It's the worst name you could possibly have picked. Oh, darn. Where should I start? Okay, well, I'll just start at the bottom. It says, once again, he glanced at his rival, which is the other person in his department. They're probably writing the same story, is what he thinks. Something seemed to tell him with certainty that his neighbor was busy on the same job as himself. There was no way of knowing whose version would finally be adopted, but he felt a profound conviction that it would be his own. Comrade Ogilvy, unimagined an hour ago, and now was a fact. It struck him as curious that you could create dead men but not living ones. Comrade Ogilvy, who had never existed in the present, now existed in the past. And when once the act of forgery was forgotten, he would exist just as authentically and upon the same evidence as Charlemagne or Julius Caesar. So, people are being replaced, possibly complete lies. It's easy. I mean, how would you know if they were actually alive or not? You wouldn't. You just read it in a book and it's real. That, some guy, forget what he was doing. I don't know. I thought I wrote it somewhere. Oh, once the legend becomes fact, print the legend. History is just agreed upon past. So, I mean, you think about it. I could write anything I want about myself. Die, and who's really going to know? 20 years from now. Nobody. You can rewrite as much as you want. Just like all the conspiracies out there. Going to the moon. 9/11. Sandy Hook. Most of us weren't there. You write whatever you want to write. So this other part's going to be quite long, but I would say it's one of the best parts that I've come across. They are making a new dictionary. It's called the Newspeak Dictionary. Like, great. So they're on their 11th edition, and it's Winston's comrade because they have no friends. They basically say you have no friends, everyone's a comrade, and that's what you call them. Basically, what I take from that is if you have no friends, you have no relationships. If you have no relationships, you have no feelings. You have no feelings, you have no sympathy. If you have no sympathy, you have no humanity. And once they take everything away from you, nothing really matters but what they tell you. And it's going to get a little deep soon. And then, yeah, I just have a couple more things to go over and then I'll be done. And I hope everybody goes and reads this book. I mean, even if you don't believe in the flat earth, I think it's a pretty good one because it tells you what to look forward to. Because I don't see it going in any other way. We're going to hit divinity or we're going to hit I don't even know what to call it. Animalistic, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, we'll talk more about it later. I'm just going to read this part. It's long, but it means a lot. The 11th, this is his friend talking to him about his work, which is making the dictionary. The 11th edition is a definitive edition, he said. We're getting the language into its final shape. The shape it's going to have when nobody speaks anything else. When we've finished with it, people like you will have to learn it all over again. You think, I dare say, that our chief job is inventing new words, but not a bit of it. We're destroying words. Scores of them, hundreds of them, every day. We're cutting the language down to the bone. The 11th edition won't contain a single word that will become obsolete before the year 2050. He bit hungrily into his bread. I always get that part. It's a beautiful thing, the destruction of words. Of course, the great wastage is in the verbs and adjectives, but there are hundreds of nouns that can be got rid of as well. It isn't only the synonyms, there are also the antonyms. After all, what justification is there for a word which is simply the opposite of the same other words? A word contains its opposite in itself. Take good, for instance. You have a word like good. What is there for a word like bad? Ungood will do just as well, better, because it's an exact opposite which the other is not. Or again, if you want a stronger version of good, what sense is there in having a whole string of vague, useless words like excellent or splendid, and all the rest of them plus good covers the meaning, or double plus good, if you want something stronger still? Of course, we use these verbs.
Mama,
What?
I want a blanket.
Okay, give me a minute.
Wait a minute, I found a blanket.
Then why are you yelling at me? Alright, sorry. Okay. Darn it, where was I? Okay. Of course, let's see. I'll go back a little bit. Let's see. Okay. Plus good covers the meaning, or double plus good if you want something stronger still. Of course, we use those forms already, but in the final version of Newspeak, there'll be nothing else. And then the whole notion of goodness and badness will be covered by only 6 words. In reality, only 1 word. Don't you see the beauty of that, Winston? It was Big Brother's idea, originally, of course, he added. You haven't a real appreciation for Newspeak, Winston, he said sadly. Even when you write it, you're still thinking in Old Speak. I've read some of those pieces that you write in the Times occasionally. They're good enough, but they're translations. In your heart, you'd prefer to stick to Old Speak. With all its vagueness and its useless shades of meaning, you don't grasp the beauty of the destruction of words. Do you know that Newspeak is the only language in the world whose vocabulary gets smaller every year? Winston did know, of course. He smiled sympathetically. He hoped, not trusting himself to speak. Don't you think that the whole aim of Newspeak is to narrow the range of thought? In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible, because there will be no words in which to express it. Every concept that can either be needed will be expressed by exactly 1 word, with its meaning rigidly defined and all its subsidiary meaningless rubbed out and forgotten. Already, in the 11th edition, we're not far from that point. But the process will still be continuing long after you and I are dead. Every year, fewer and fewer words, the range of consciousness always a little smaller. Even now, of course, there's no reason or excuse for committing thought crime. It's merely a question of self-discipline, reality control. But in the end, there won't be any need even for that. The revolution will be complete when the language is perfect. Newspeak is in Ingsoc, and Ingsoc is Newspeak, he added with a sort of mystical satisfaction. Has it ever occurred to you, Winston, that by the year 2050, at the very latest, not a single human being will be alive who could understand such a conversation as we are having now. It had been on the tip of his tongue to say, except the poll rolls. But he checked himself, not feeling guilty, certain that this remark was not in some way unorthodox. Sim, however, had defined that he was about to say. The proles are not human beings, he said carelessly. By 2050, earlier probably, all real knowledge of old speak will have disappeared. The whole literature of the past will have been destroyed. Shakespeare, Milton, Byron, they'll exist only in Newspeak versions, not merely changed into something different, but actually changed into something contradictory of what they used to be. Even the literature of the party will change. Even the slogans will change. How could you have a slogan like freedom is slavery when the concept of freedom has been abolished? The whole climate of thought will be different. In fact, there will be no thought as we understand it now. Orthodoxy means not thinking, no, not needing to think. Orthodoxy is unconsciousness. One of these days, thought Winston with sudden deep conviction, Syme will be vaporized. He is too intelligent. He sees too clearly and speaks too plainly. The party does not like such people. One day he will disappear. It is written in his face. So, one thing that I got from that is, let's go back to... It says, they'll exist only in Newspeak versions, not merely changed into something different, but actually changed into something contradictory of what they used to be. Maybe even the Bible. Who knows? They are transferred from language to language, because we already found some words are changed and they mean different things. And they still put them in there anyways. It's Newspeak and it's coming. And it's coming in all books. Not just the old ones that mean something. And then another piece is how people talk nowadays. You want to talk about something deep or something meaningful, which most people don't have very many conversations like that anymore. This is just a small piece. It says, whatever it was, you could be certain that every word of it was pure orthodoxy, pure ingsoc. As he watched the eyeless face and the jaw moving rapidly up and down, Winston had a curious feeling that this was not a real human being, but some kind of dummy. It was not the man's brain that was speaking. It was his larynx. The stuff that was coming out of him consisted of words, but it was not speech in the true sense. It was a noise uttered in unconsciousness, like a quacking of a duck. That's total indoctrination. I don't even have to believe what I say. I just repeat it because that's what you are. That's what you're praised for in school, is just to repeat what I tell you to repeat, and then you just believe it the rest of your life. And it just comes out as a quacking duck. You don't even have to know the facts behind it. You don't have to know nothing. You just repeat because that's what you were praised for. That's what you were told was good. This is how you learn. And it's so sad. So that's as far as I got so far. Page 52 is as far as I got. I'm already going on a 40-minute video just talking about it. It's pretty sad. But I can see how it's coming in almost every direction of everybody's life. So I'm going to upload this. And I guess let me know what you think, or if you're going to read it, because I really insist on you doing that, because I just read a little bit out of it. So there's way more in there. I mainly picked it up because of what they, somewhere farther in the book, I don't know where it's at, was talking about how the stars are where they are and they can literally go up there and grab them if they want to. So I wonder when I'm going to get to that part. But yeah, I'm right before chapter 5. And all that's pretty heavy, and it's kind of written like it's normal. And he's kind of just coming out of it, which is kind of like how we're living. not just in the flat earth, but society itself, waking up to what we see and hear, and how we are dealing with it, and how we have to live in a reality we know is wrong, and how to bring it up and help others. And I don't know what to do, but I think everybody should start with this book. Maybe I should pass this out to the masses, because most people started with conspiracy before they got any further than that. So, I mean, let me know, because I'm curious.